The other real big story here is stakeholders, and I'm thinking mostly about workers. And 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 the segue here is that this is also a time for companies to step up, especially your companies that have a crap load of cash. So in the news today, starts off with the headline that millions of Americans could lose their jobs and many won't get severance pay. But then there are some shining lights, like Workday will give employees a cash bonus worth 2 weeks of pay. Disneyland supposedly is closed. 31,000 employees are, however, are given 18-day paid vacation. So there's an opportunity here. There really is an opportunity here for companies to take care of their workers, which is great for the workers, but just also great for the reputation. I mean, right?
Well, I
I
think
just think.
I think there's some companies worth watching. Um,
Hmm.
and we talked about this on Friday in our sort of like extra show. Um, Look, the Business Roundtable made a big stink about stakeholders in August of last year. And the Business Roundtable is not like company like we talk about them a lot here, and it sounds like some weird cabal, but it's Walmart, it's Boeing,
Sounds like it because it is.
it's every company you've ever heard of is basically their CEO sits on the Business
Yeah.
Roundtable. It's supposed to be a big deal, and there were hundreds of signatories for saying stakeholder capitalism is what they want to focus on now. They focus on their suppliers, their employees, not just investors, and that's who they. And regardless of your feeling at the time whether or not that was bullshit, now you're going to find out whether it's bullshit because the New York Times just ran a story yesterday about like workers in the line of fire, and I think it's the one you're referencing. It's not just types of jobs; it's that the fact that McDonald's and Walmart are two have the largest employee bases, basically in the face of coronavirus, and no
Hmm.
paid time off. So,
Right.
so
Oh,
this is sort of like the
yeah.
moment, and we talked about last week, like how these companies, just the Business Roundtable board, put $70 billion into buybacks last year.
Hmm.
Now this year they're not going to have the revenue streams they had last year. So I wouldn't expect it to be like they have $70 billion sitting around to just hand to as paid time off. But they also don't have to pay as nearly as much in paid time off. I mean the estimates, for if you're a minimum wage employee at Walmart and there's about two
Hmm.
million of them,
Yeah,
right?
it's a lot. Hmm.
If you're talking about 40 hours a week for, I saw an estimate that was like to stay above the poverty line at minimum wage, you have to work basically 80 hours a month at federal minimum wage in the US.
Right.
You, you're not actually talking about $70 billion. You're talking about less. And if you can go to the Fed and take out money at near 0% rates as a bank, and you can lend it or zero, and you can lend it to Walmart, which is a high credit company, at almost what you borrowed it for. And Walmart has access to a lot of cheap cash, and they have a ton of employees with no paid time off. This is the
Hmm.
moment where the Business Roundtable members could step up and be like, see, we told you it's not bullshit. And that is actually much more interesting to me to watch as this unfolds, like from a business standpoint, than watching the market crash. Because the market crashing is like a whole bunch, it's as much irrational fear as it is rational fear of recession. But it's like you can't do anything about that. The things that these CEOs can do, get some cheap cash or free cash, give it in paid time off, and play hero ball. We just did a
Yeah.
podcast about this on Market Medium about playing CEOs as heroes and whether or not they deserve to be it. Well, now they can. They can do it.
Yeah. Okay. And you know what? They wouldn't actually be heroes, but they can play hero on TV, and I think that's just as important. And and
Honestly,
and we talk a lot about Walmart. It's a we talk about it as a fake public company because essentially it is completely controlled by the Walton family, and the Walton family, net worth is, you know, in the hundreds of billions, and that you're talking about paying just sick leave for 2 million workers, let's say at those wages. That's less than $2 billion right there. So this is easy hero work. I mean, this is, and I'm sure they could get all kinds of great loans for that hero work, all kinds of great tax benefits and blah 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 blah. Anyway, I'm curious to see what happens here. And I'm hopeful once again that structurally there are actual changes that are made after this that actually are positive benefits for stakeholders because these people aren't already guaranteed paid sick leave is a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, that's a system problem, but
Yeah.
I
All
do
right.
think if we're going
Yeah.
to hand off the system problems to the private sector, then watching who steps up in the private sector to actually fix some of the system problems that they
Uh-huh.
can is an interesting social experiment. We'll see if it works.